Hello, everybody. It is the 28th of August. It's a Saturday. The year is 2010. And I have some investing numbers on the screen. And what you're saying, you say it's gambling? It's sports betting? Well, same thing. I don't see much of a difference for if you're good enough. If you're smart enough, this can be a business or an investment that can be profitable. It takes a lot of hard work and a lot of hard effort. But that's the same case if you are investing on the stock market or any other form of calculated gambling. And myself, I've put a small, tiny wager on the Cleveland Browns, getting 2.5 points. What that means is if the Cleveland Browns win the game or they lose by a single or 2 points, I win. And if they do not, well, then I lose. And that's how the game works. And there's many different options, just like there is when you play the stock market. You can bet parlays, meaning, well, if say the Lions cover this spread along with the Ravens and this Cowboys game goes over 41, then I'm going to get about 6-1 on my money. That's another form of playing. And maybe you do what they call a teaser bet, meaning I like the Vikings, but I want them at +1, and I want this Tennessee game under 43. Once again, if they both come in, you will almost double your money. It's another way of playing, and you don't hear on CNBC, which is an investing channel, please take the Tampa Bay Buccaneers +2.5 or whatever they see as good investments. They will say, go long on Alcoa or Potash or Google or Research in Motion or whatever. They'll give a bunch of names, which is the same as saying lay the 5 on the Minnesota Vikings. The different ways of playing. And I decided to make this little article. Actually, I wrote this months ago, and I've only done 4 pages, and I've put it on the sidelines. I'm not too sure if I'm going to continue it. If there's enough interest within the comments, then I will. And I started off by stating, is sports gambling investing? And if we look at the definition of investing, it is 1, to commit money or capital in order to gain a financial return. 2A, to spend or devote for future advantage or benefit, or to devote morally or psychologically as to a purpose commit. So it's pretty obvious that if you're making a wager on a sports bet, you are committing fiat money, capital, in the attempt to gain a financial return. Now, it's not guaranteed, but over the long run, if you are smart enough, it could potentially or essentially pretty much be guaranteed. And that's the same with stocks, where you could buy this one stock at 40 a share. If you sell it back at 34, it's a loss. It's a loss, sort of like losing on a sports bet. And I said here, CNBC. Very often when you go to the finance web pages like CNBC and Yahoo Finance, they will let you know what investors are doing. They may say investors like the market on news of consumer confidence and the Dow Jones is up 80 points. If these people are staking money to play, then the would-be investing, see, I haven't edited this yet, then they would be investing. Nonetheless, it's a form of gambling. And I've put in a few different games here. October the 21st, 2007, why to play the Denver Broncos that week. And, well, heck, let's just make this a little bit bigger here. And okay, so when weather can also be a factor in games that make investors happy. If you understand what conditions can bring, this can work to magnificent results. On November 13th, 2005, the recap of the San Francisco 49ers and Chicago Bears gave investors an easy 2 victories. Why were they easy? This was because of the heavy winds that came to Chicago. The Associated Press said after the game, with wind gusts shaking the goalpost, roaring through the referees' on-field microphone, blowing off their caps and sending hot dog wrappers all over Soldier Field, Neither team can muster much offense and stuck mainly with the run. This was an easy under to the total and the play on the 49ers. The Bears were 13-point favorites, and the over-under total was close to 30 even. The total kept going lower and lower on the weekend as investors were noticing that the win could reduce the score of the game. Passing was not expected to be there for either side, and field goals would now start to become a problem. In fact, both quarterbacks, Cody Pickett and Kyle Orton, had terrible days. They combined only for 95 passing yards the entire game. The final score was 17-9 for Chicago, and therefore both the 49ers and the under was a victory. The longest field goal of the game was 37 yards. Generally speaking, when you notice that rains and wind enter a game, then the under is the way to play. This forces teams to try and run the ball more, which can result in less total plays in the game as the clock keeps moving. This can also result in turnovers. This can work against an under bet if a team loses a ball due to a fumble at their own 10-yard line, but at the same point, they can easily fumble the ball when they are in the red zone, which can work for unders. So what I'm going to do now is I made a spreadsheet. I want to go over it. And a lot of times you'll hear people or sports services touting that they can win 80% of the time. If you hear that, it's a lie. It's a major, major lie. For this is a spreadsheet which has a random number generator. What I do is you put the long-term percentage in which somebody's going to win, the risk that you would put on each individual wager. The random number generator will give you a win-loss record, and it will give you, and this here has a chart for the success or unsuccess that happens, which will state what the highest you would be at, the lowest, and what the final balance after 500 bets would be with a total yield. So if you won 80% of the time, risking 80%, you would be at $4 by your 1,000th bet. And really, you can't bet. When you're down here, you're talking about like 1,000th of a penny. You can't bet 1,000th of a penny, but for mathematical purposes, we'll have it on here. Now what we'll do is we will change this random number generator to give it some positiveness because it should be gaining 80%. You don't lose if you're 80%. And like I said, if somebody says they're 80%, they're lying. Here's a spot where you go from all the way from 10,000 down to 100th of a penny, back up to, well, how many zeros do we got? Well, the high is 117 million. So you go from under a 100th of a penny to 117 million, make a new low, and now you're at $3.99. So let's just change the risk because obviously 80% is too much. If we change it to 70%, look at how things are changing. All of a sudden now, you're profiting big time. And if you want to know what this 1 plus OOE plus 18, 21, and 24 means, that's how many zeros there are. So we're talking about having a 1 plus 21 zeros by going 391 and 111. If you were 60% instead, you can see how things are starting to look a little bit better, because you're not risking as much. So you can take the losses a little bit better. 40%, we're talking 32 zeros. It's impossible to get this kind of money because this kind of money doesn't even exist as of yet. But let's assume that you put a realistic bet, say 3% of your bankroll together. This is what would happen. You would be consistently gaining money because 80% means you're winning 4 of 5 games, which is pretty much, or it is impossible, unless you really, really work your butt off over a long period of time. Nonetheless, you can see how it got up to 2.5 million. But realistically, winning 80% of the time just doesn't happen. You need to go 52.3% of the time to win. And you're going to see this getting crushed. Well, not as crushed as I thought it would be. That's because there's only a 3% risk. But if I put in a 50% or say 12% risk, now it's going to get crushed. You can see here that the final balance was 832 and minus 16 on its previous percent, but now it's pretty much lost everything because you're betting too much money. But a realistic percent that people can get towards is 61, which is extremely, extremely profitable. And if you risk 75% winning 61% of the game, you can see how you would be getting crushed. 60% crushed. 50% crushed. 40% you are getting crushed. 30% probably not so good. Actually, not too bad. You have some volatility as you go from this high of 36,000 down to this low of what is $20.56 and then back up to 6,000. But if you risk an 8% level, which is more stable, you can see how you're able to handle the losses along the way. We'll change the scaling of this a little bit so that it could look a little bit better. And that would be a constant pattern of higher highs and higher lows. You got a little bit of a slump here, but that happens. That's part of calculated gambling. If you risk 5%, same sort of deal. You're up 46,000 after 500 bets, or 4,500%. So there's a lot of profit in it. Now, if you risk small amounts, like say 1%, you can see here that it didn't do so well. We'll adjust the scaling again. We can see that the low is 974, the high is 2414. So we'll go 900 for a low, and we'll go 3,000 for a high. And there we can see a pattern of higher highs and higher lows. Very, very normal. Put some extra numbers in there. And if, say, you're really, really tight and you didn't want to risk much, you risk 0.25%, you can see now that the gains are really not coming into play because you're playing maybe too safe at this point. Way, way too safe. So once again, if we adjust this scaling on here, you're going to see a pattern of higher highs and higher lows. But to sum up, basically what this is saying is that in order to be a successful gambler, you need to, 1, know what you're doing. Be able to take a look at these investing lines and say, what's the smart play? Why is it a smart play? What information do I have that says on the long term, I'm going to win this play 55% of the time. I'm going to win this play 60% of the time. There's many games that might have 70-75% advantage over the long run, and that takes a lot of effort and a lot of skill. But not only do you need to be able to find good games, you also need the discipline to be able to not play too many games, to not force action, which would thus reduce your long-term percentage. And of course, you need to not bet way too much money, or else you will lose pretty much everything you got. Thank you for watching, and have yourself a great day. Bye-bye.